morning. So glad to see y'all on. We're here on this bright, sunshiny February the 16th of 2017. Tom and I are traveling. He's driving for me. You can see, look, no hands, no hands. I'm not driving. I continually get asked about driving and videoing, and I'm not doing that. Tom drives for me. I know some of the images on the videos makes it look as though I'm in the driver's seat, but I'm not, I promise. So anyway, we're still reading we're starting to read in Leviticus. And I can remember in years past, Leviticus was so hard for me to read. It was just difficult for me to read the book of Leviticus, and now I look forward to it. I couldn't wait this morning when I saw we're in the first chapter of Leviticus. We're reading actually first chapter through the third chapter, and through this reading today, there's some powerful, powerful things that's being said, and some things that's impacted my life and changed my life. So we'll get started. Looks like somebody's on with us. Yeah, there's Amanda. Hi, Amanda. So happy to have you on with us today. She's from Louisiana. Mama of some beautiful babies. And Julie's on. Yep, I'm in the car, Julie. But I'm not driving. Tom's driving. Everybody always asks why I film and drive, but I don't film and drive. Tom's driving, but Julie's logging in from Dallas. I'm so tickled. Hey, Julie, how's my makeup look? Just saying. Okay, Leviticus. We're reading about all of the sacrifices that's made, and it can be tedious. It can be mundane. It can be, oh my Lord, why do I have to read about all these sacrifices? And I'm just telling you guys that your faithfulness to the word, God will speak to you. He spoke to me many, many years ago. He continues to speak that same thing to me over and over again. Thank you, Julie. Hi, Brenda. He speaks the same thing over to me over and over again. It's a reminder of an extremely powerful experience I had with the Lord reading Leviticus one time when I was absolutely arguing with him. God, why in the world do I have to read about all these sacrifices? We don't have to make these sacrifices anymore. Jesus is the sacrifice. He's the perfect sacrifice. He fulfilled that part of the law so that I don't have to do that anymore. And oh man, when you engage God in those kind of conversations, first and foremost, I believe he loves it. I think he loves the sound of our voice. I think he longs to hear our voice. You want to know what makes me think that? My boys are in their 30s, and there is nothing that tickles me anymore than to look down and see that it's one of my kids calling me. I love the sound of my kids' voice, all of them. All of them. I love the sound of their voice. I love the sound of my grandkids' voice. And it absolutely convinces me that God's no different, that he loves the sound of our voice. So when you've got questions or you're struggling, he's the first one you ought to talk to. And I was talking to him, telling him, Lord, this is Old Testament stuff. I don't know why I need to read this. And boy, he gave me a powerful scenario that had taken place in my own life, where I had taken the time to stop. In a very, very busy schedule, I was going from one meeting to another meeting to another meeting to another meeting. I had my whole day packed, and yet a young woman who I had been encouraging in the Lord, even though it was in the government setting that I worked in, I had been encouraging her in the Lord. wanted to take the time to stop and tell me a praise report. And God kind of in a vision, as I've been murmuring and complaining about having to read about the sacrifices, he stopped me and he gave me this vision, and he showed that exchange I had with this young woman. And the exchange really happened. I want you to understand, it's the truth. Shannon's heard this story many times, but anyway, he showed how I stopped, how I had nodded, I had smiled, I had direct eye contact. This young woman believed with all of her heart I was hearing every word she was saying, and I was. But then he showed me, he said, this is the physical, this is what everybody else saw, and I was nodding, and I was having direct eye contact with her, and encouraging her. And then he showed me that what he saw was just like I had both arms, just like this, and I was tapping my foot, waiting for the seconds to go by because I was late for my next meeting. And he told me that sacrifice did not make a pleasing aroma to him, and that it gained me nothing as far as the kingdom goes. And it broke me, I'm telling you. Our number one commandment is to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, and to love one another. And I wasn't loving on her with that sacrifice. I took the time and I sacrificed my time to stop and do all the right things. Everything was picture perfect when God replayed it for me, except my heart wasn't right. And my heart did not make a pleasing aroma to God. And you know what? We're asked, faith without works is dead. We're asked to do things by God all the time. And if all we do is murmur and complain, then it's not a pleasing aroma to God. And in today's reading, Leviticus chapter 1 through chapter 3, I counted up, and there's 6 different times that he talks about the sacrifice making a pleasing aroma to him. And it just every single time I read it, I'm reminded of that, why am I doing what I'm doing? If my heart's not right, it's not a pleasing aroma to him. Stinking thinking. It's not just stinking thinking, though. It's stinking actions, and it's stinking attitude. And, we do what we do because we love God. And if we do what we do because we love God, we'll do what we do with joy in our heart, and there won't be anything to murmur and complain about. And when we catch ourselves not having that kind of an attitude, that is our call to press in and to one more time make it not about me. See, in that exchange with this sweet young woman who needed encouragement in the Lord, she needed what I had to offer her. I had God in me to offer her, but I made it about me, and the only thing I offered her was my eye contact and my nods and my smile. I didn't offer her God because I made it about me. It was my time. I was late. It was my next appointment. Instead of understanding that God directs my paths and he numbers my steps. When we're his, and when we give up all rights to ourselves and we give up all rights to be right, then he's directing our path, and he would have made my way straight. And chances are, if my attitude had been right, I wouldn't have even been late for that next meeting, because he's the best time manager there is in the whole wide world. So as I'm reading this, that's an awful lot about what I'm reminded of each and every single time that I read this. But I got something new today as well. So that's been what I've gotten from this for years and years now. And it's a great reminder. And the more I read it, every time I go back over it and I read it, then it's quicker and quicker to come up in my spirit as I'm just out doing life, as I'm out trying my best to do what God wants me to do every day. That reminder will come up, and it's the words, pleasing aroma. Are you a pleasing aroma, Elizabeth? Are you a pleasing aroma to the Lord? And you can bet at the times that that's coming up in my spirit, it's the times when I'm not being a pleasing aroma to the Lord. So, but I want to read in chapter 11. This will be, chapter 12, Oh man, okay, I'm going to start all over. Chapter 2, verse 11. I want to read about the grain offering here for just a second and show you the other point that God gave me this morning. No grain offering that you bring to the Lord shall be made with leaven, for you shall burn no leaven nor any honey as a food offering to the Lord. As an offering of first fruits, now that'll preach. Our first fruits, what are we giving to God? Are we giving God the leftover? Is it, well, I'm so tired, I'm at the end of the day, so I'll only read, half of my reading, or I woke up tired this morning, so, I know it takes me 15 minutes to read this, but I'll read for 2. Anyway, as an offering of first fruits, you may bring them to the Lord, but they shall not be offered on the altar for a pleasing aroma. Grain offerings can't be a pleasing aroma. You shall season all your grain offerings with salt. So first he speaks about leaven, and the leaven represents the yeast that causes something to rise and grow. So the grain offerings had to be made without leaven because it was symbolic of what the world wants to put in us, the seasoning of the world. The world wants to put in us a leaven that rises, that is evil. And it depends on what we allow to come in. What am I listening to? What kind of music do I hear? What kind of TV am I watching? What kind of movies do I go to? What kind of entertainment do I have? As the junk comes in, the leaven rises, and that's what grows inside of us. We have to guard our heart. And it's not that I have the freedom to listen to any kind of music I want. Jesus died for all my sins, past, present, and future. It's not that I can't do it. It's that I care about, and that's what this is about. The leaven, he instructed them not to have leaven in these sacrifices because he was making sure that what was passed down generation to generation to generation, it's been thousands and thousands of years ago since this text took place with Aaron in the tabernacle making these and learning how to do these sacrifices. It's symbolic of the leaven. What is it that's in us that's growing? I want it to be God that's in me that's growing. God's spirit in me growing. I don't want it to be the spirit of the prince of this world in me that's growing. And what we put in makes a huge difference in what we put out. And quite frankly, this year, above all other years, he's also dealing with me even about the food I put in my body and how it grows into the temple that houses the Holy Spirit. But then he says, you shall season all your grain offerings with salt. And this morning, I was reminded also about the scriptures in Matthew that tells us that we're to be the salt of the earth, that we're supposed to be the flavoring that salts the earth, that preserves the earth. I mean, salt was used as a preservative back then. It was way more for a preservative than it was just for a pleasing seasoning. It was a pleasing seasoning, but more importantly back then, salt was important because it was a preservative, because they didn't have Freon and refrigeration like we have today to preserve our foods, and freezers to preserve their foods. They had salt that preserved it. And once again, it's symbolic of how we are supposed to be to the world. We're supposed to be the flavorful seasoning to the world. We're supposed to have a life that others want. We are supposed to have what others would want that will preserve them in this world. And so it was something new. I had never gotten that out of reading these Leviticus before. And it's very encouraging once again, even reading about these 6 sacrifices, that no, we don't have to do the physical sacrifices that we read, but it's a great example of why we don't leave out the Old Testament readings in our daily Bible readings, because God will make it applicable to us today. And in Mark, we're reading where Jesus does all kinds of miracles. All kinds. Simon's mother-in-law had a fever and he healed her. She got up and cooked for him that evening. He cast out some demons from a sick person, and he told them not to speak, and they did. And then the people just came in droves to Jesus for healings. You know, miracles and wonders are to give God glory. And this is a perfect example that Jesus was making it known all across the land exactly who he was. And so once again, I'm reminded this year the theme has been the authority that we've been given. You know what? We spend more time giving credit to the enemy than we do to the authority we have to cast down the enemy. We give more credit to the deliverance we need than we do the fact that we've been delivered. And we got to be real careful with that, because what we give credit to grows, just like the leavening. And so once again, reading Mark, I was extremely encouraged once again to tap into the authority that God's given us. I mean, if we're struggling, tap into the authority of the power that's within you, Christ-centered, God in you, the hope of glory. That's where our hope comes from. We can't be without hope because we can't be without God. He's here. He's ever present. He never leaves us. He never forsakes us. There's always hope. Doesn't matter how bad things look. God in you, the hope of glory. So anyway, I appreciate you coming on this morning and sharing with me. And this is Thankful Thursday, so we'll wake up tomorrow to Fabulous Friday, and we'll start all over again. God bless.